My name's Joel Sherman. I'm with Evan Schwartzmiller, and this is the Invent Podcast. On this week's episode of the Invent Podcast, Evan and I talk about the importance of taking time to unplug from technology and social media use. We address the pros and cons of the technological era that we are living in and go over why you should find time to be alone and be bored every once in a while. We hope you guys enjoy. I'd like to start off by saying that we've made it past the average podcast lifespan of 7 episodes. So I'd like to proudly say welcome to episode 8 of the Invent Podcast. As always, we want to use this as a reminder for you to practice some meditation or mindfulness today. So maybe pause the podcast and take some time to do that. This is actually the last episode in this room. Evan and I are moving out this week. So if you're watching on YouTube, next week we'll have a different set. But I'm doing really well today. It's another beautiful day where we're from. My finals are going really easy so far. How about you, Evan?
Really good so far. I really lucked out with my schedule, so everything's working out. It's great.
So today we're going to be talking about being plugged into technology and society and how we can positively change those things so we can do them in a more healthy manner. So let's jump right into it. So first of all, putting a ton of focus on social media takes up a lot of time. Social media companies, they make more money the longer that you stay on them with advertisements and other things. So they're actually designed to keep your attention. So I think understanding that is just a great thing because you become more conscientious of your use. You can try to balance your time with being on social media and other things in your life.
Yeah, having that knowledge that these companies, they're out there to keep you on whichever platform it may be, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, that they're making money from your time on there. And not that necessarily should turn you off of that. That doesn't mean you have to stop using that. That just means that you need to be aware of the fact that they're gonna use strategies, they're gonna use tactics that keep you on there.
And that you could take that as you wish, whether good or bad, but it's just important to understand that's the fact of the matter. I think that that's the first step to recognizing and trying to find the balance, like I said. And also understanding that there is a little bit of a connection between stress and the use of social media. So actually, Pew Research Center did a study, and the primary researcher, Professor Hampton, says there is a complex relationship between social media use and stress. There is a great deal of speculation that social media users feel extra pressure to participate and keep up on social media to avoid the fear of missing out in activities that others share, and that they feel anxious after viewing the successful images that friends project on Facebook. So realize that social media shows the highlights of people's lives, that nobody posts about their biggest failures. So you're never going to see that negative side of it. Everyone goes through hard things, so don't think that they're so happy just because they're Instagram. They're always happy. And that comes in with the idea of recognizing that these social medias, if you're spending more time on social media and you're only seeing these happy things, and you could be like, oh, I'm really missing out, or oh, I'm not happy all the time. And just understanding that is a great thing to step away from and kind of realize that you're okay.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to go on these social media sites and see what other people are doing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you touched on it a little bit that you need to step back and realize that that's not how these people's lives are all the time. This is just, like you said, the snapshot. This is just the highlights of what's going on. But I think more importantly, you need to understand that you can go out and do these things yourself too. You don't need to live through these social media accounts. You can go out and experience these things for yourself. Do something that's worth putting up on your Instagram, or do something that you find just as enjoyable as watching someone else do it, or it'll be more enjoyable if you do it yourself.
And on the other side of that coin, don't go out and do things to put it on Instagram for other people to see, because that is kind of you playing into the same social thing that we kind of want to step away from. I think that going out and doing fun things so you can show other people that you're doing fun things that can be very stress inducing for you, and it kind of will do the same thing that other people's posts are doing, that, oh, this person's doing this and I'm not doing that, so that sucks, and like, why am I sad when this person is having so much fun? You're kind of playing into the whole system in that way.
Yeah, if you go out there and the only reason you're doing this is so that other people can see you doing it, you're really taking away pretty much all the value of it. You need to be out there for yourself. You want to be able to experience this so that you can remember it down the line, not just so you can get a few more likes, or a few more friends. You want to do this for yourself, and it'll make the whole experience a lot better. You're not going to be worried about, are people going to like this or are people not going to like this? You're going to be there and you're going to be in the moment, and it's going to be so much better.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I've always kind of appreciated and thought funny was like when people go to concerts or they'll go do something fun, it's just record the whole thing through their phone. And in my experience, I've never really done that. I've always found value in kind of going and experiencing things just as they are and kind of keeping them in my memory. And yeah, there's a lot of value to having pictures for things, and when you do something fun, take a picture there. But I think putting that phone away and being completely focused on the moment, which goes along with other meditation and mindful practices, I think there's a ton of value in that, and it's way more fulfilling.
Yeah, you touched on this, but you definitely want to be able to document these things. There's nothing wrong with taking a few pictures, especially with friends and family. That's huge, taking pictures with your friends and family when you're doing these fun things. But it's like we said before, the problem comes when you're doing these for the sole purpose of getting these pictures, getting these likes and stuff.
Yeah, there's a quote I read the other day that said, "When the phones come out, the faces go away," or something like that. And it was just like that idea of being at a concert and pulling your phone out and watching the whole thing through your phone. When you could take a few pictures, maybe record a song or two, but then put it away and really, really zone into what's happening in front of you. And another thing that I would also like to touch on is that we aren't really bored enough. There's a ton of benefit from being in your own head and thinking on a regular basis. This goes with meditation, mindfulness, manifesting. These are all things that require you to not have any stimulus coming in. And most people now fill their empty time with scrolling through Instagram or Twitter. And just because we have access to, they're like, oh, I'm not doing anything right now, so I could be doing something right now, so I'm going to scroll through this. And personally, I think this is something that I realized I struggled a lot with. I hated being alone and in my own head, but stepping away from social media and forcing myself into situations where I'm bored, I've become more comfortable with it. And some of my best ideas in writing come from time spent being alone and really taking time to have things run through my brain and reflect.
Yeah, and that's really hard to do because when you're sitting in your room or wherever you are and you're bored, it's very easy to pick up the phone and start engaging with that. It's very easy to spend a lot of time on social media. So it's really hard to do, to be able to put the phone down and say, I'm not doing anything right now, but I can fill my time better, whether that's, like you said, writing or reading or doing something that requires more than just looking at a screen.
Yeah, and I think there's this big thing going on in the internet right now where people are doing like, they're quitting social media for like 30 days and documenting what their experience is like and how much different they feel after they've been off of social media in a way. I know Casey Neistat did it, Matt Delavia did it, and Yes Theory, one of the guys over there did it. And all of their experiences, they've been like, wow, I've never really realized how attached to it I was. And it was kind of hard to get over the first few days, but after a while, everything just seemed a little bit better. And I think most of the guys that have done it, they'll delete the social media off their phones, and then after the 30 days, they decide that they don't want to have that app on their phone again, and they'll only use social media because that's part of their business as content creators and video makers. They'll only use their desktop or their laptop for social media, which is, I think that's such a healthy way to do it. And while I haven't gotten to that step, I still have all social media on my phone, and maybe that's something I'll look into doing because there seems to be a lot of benefit from it.
Yeah, it's almost like fasting food in a way. You're fasting from this constant consumption of information, pictures, people writing stuff, walls, you're reading all this stuff. But if you can put that down, if you can fast from that for a few days, there's a lot of benefits, just like fasting food. There's a lot of benefits that come out of it.
One thing that I thought was hilarious was Casey Neistat in particular. I was watching his video on it, and he deleted social media from his phones because he said every 20 seconds to a minute he'd be pulling out his phone and checking and scrolling. And for the first 7 days after he deleted it off his phone, he had that impulse of pulling his phone out and getting on it. And when he realized that there wasn't any social media on there, he would put it away. But it took a while for that impulse to go away. And I think that's something that's that's just evidence showing that it is so habitual, and it's something that is ingrained in us after we've done it for so long. And kind of stepping away from that and changing that pattern, to me, that can only be healthy.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it becomes muscle memory. It's so ingrained in our society and just how we live our lives, to pull the phone out. And like I said, it becomes muscle memory in a way that it can consume us because we're consuming it like all the time. We were just plugged in all the time, reading this, looking at this, liking these pictures. It's really good to take a step back, put the phone back in your pocket. You don't need it out right now. There's nothing wrong with looking at it, but when it's every, like you said, 15, 20 seconds or even more, and I struggle with this. I know I look at my phone all the time, and it's something I really need to work on. Joel definitely knows this. I'm on my phone a lot, and but it's not a long time. It's short, quick periods of me being on my phone. But that, like you said,
it adds up.
It adds up over time. It's very repetitive.
And one thing, I find it almost laughable. It's a comical thing walking around campus and seeing like the amount of people who are looking head down, not paying attention to what they're doing on their phone, on social media, texting, whatever the situation may be. And if nobody listening knows what I'm talking about, go to a big college campus for a day and just watch people walk around. It's hilarious in a way, because I've never seen more distracted walking in my life. People walking on intersections when cars are coming, and people running into each other and not seeing where they're going. I just don't see how that can be a healthy way to consume and use technology.
Yeah, besides the obvious dangerousness of walking into intersections or running into people, like you said, it's this constant consumption, and that's definitely not healthy. There's no way that's healthy.
And that goes for everything. I mean, I just feel like it's a big thing in our culture right now. Is social media good? Is social media bad? We don't know. But it's like every other thing throughout time. It's something that we have to accept is going to be a part of our culture for forever, probably. And it's about finding that healthy balance. And with all the negative things that we've been talking about, I think it's important to talk about the positive things too. We live in the most amazing time to be alive ever. I mean, when have we ever had access instantly to information, everything and anything that we can think of? And social media offers us a platform to connect with people all around the world. We just have so much access to all of this information. So the important thing to note is finding that personal, healthy balance with technology use.
Yeah, the internet and social media, it's one of the greatest tools we have in history. It's up there with the wheel. I'm being honest, in electricity, it's one of those things, like you said, we're able to get on and connect with anyone, anywhere in the world, and that's never been achievable before. The fastest form of communication, maybe someone on a horse, or even like the telegram, but those are short messages, without emotions, but we're able to see what people are feeling, how they're doing on an hourly to even minute basis. And that's really amazing. And that's a really powerful tool. We can use that for a lot of good. There's a lot of good that can come out of that.
And for me personally, just one tip. I have a list of 3 rules for social media and technology use, and Evan knows about these, but they are: I can't get on social media when I'm walking to class, I can't get on social media when I'm eating alone, and I can't get on social media for the first hour of every morning. And I've noticed so much improvement in my mood and calmness throughout the day. And I think this is a combination of me implementing a ton of healthy habits. Like I don't listen to music when I run, so that's another time for my headspace to be clear. I'm eating healthier. I'm meditating every single day. So I spend way less time consuming all of the input, and I have more time at the gym, meditating, writing, reading, like I said. And at the end of the day, that's all very fulfilling to me. And I think just finding those practices that kind of force you off of using technology, it's just great. It clears your head, you're calm, and you have less stress. My mood is overall better, and I just feel like I can accomplish more because I have that extra time to do so.
Yeah, I know so many people that say to me that, when I'm studying, I have to be listening to music. Or when big one's running. When I'm running, I have to be listening to music. And, while there's some truth to that, music is very calming. It can get you centered. It can get you in the mood. You have to be able to get rid of that dependence on it. You have to be able to, I can do things without music going on in the background. And I think that's a big thing. Like you said, you don't listen to music walking to class. That's huge. Being able to have that time where you're not constantly listening to something, or you're listening to stuff, but it's not music. It's, the birds chirping, or, the road. You're listening to things around you, your surroundings. You're not, plugged. You're not in your own little bubble. And it's good to get out of that bubble.
Take time to observe all the other distracted walkers around you. And I really want to kind of address this whole music thing with the running. When I first started training for this ultra marathon, and like when I first started running, those things were at the same time. I struggled with that a little bit. I was like, I'll listen to music when I run, and then Evan was like, I've never listened to music, because he was a runner in high school, and it kind of blew my mind. I was like, you run without music? And I had that mindset. And then as I started like shifting away from music into listening to podcasts as I ran, I now run completely without music at all. And when I tell people that, it is mind-blowing to them. And it's just it kind of blows my mind now, thinking about the fact that I did run with music before, because without it's so freeing in a way, and I can think so clearly, and it's just a time where I'm in kind of this meditative state where a lot of things go on in my head. And like I said before, some of my best ideas come when those times when I'm free in my brain. And that is something that I stress to everybody. Just if there's a time that you're feeling in your day where you're listening to music, and you don't have to be, maybe you have like a walking commute or whatever the situation may be, 15, 20 minutes, or maybe even put in like a 30-minute walk in your day without music, and just take that time to do it input free, where you just have your thoughts and that's it.
Yeah. I was gonna go on something like that. Like he mentioned, in high school we weren't allowed to run with music during practice, so I just kind of developed this habit of not running with music. But the times I do run with music, I find myself stressing about like little things, like, the next song, I'm gonna have to stop and choose the next song, or like, this playlist is terrible, I'm gonna have to change it. And while these are small things, they add up and they distract you from what you're doing. You were there to run. If you're running on a trail, you're there to or if you're there to run a certain pace, it distracts you from that. And that's not always a good thing. People say, it distracts me from running so I can run faster. And while there's truth to that, you don't, if you're focusing on running, it can be hard to get over things. You want to be able to focus on the task at hand. And in the music, it's not just the music itself. Music is beautiful. I love music, but it's the other things that come with it. I got to change this song, or this song, this song's not the right kind of workout song. Those things really play a part.
One thing that I'd like to just challenge any of the listeners to do is think back to a time when you sat down and you listened to an album by an artist, or just music, and just that, and you consumed it, and you focused on the words and the sounds, everything that was coming in, and that was your only input. And when was the last time that you sat down to eat and you tasted everything in your food, and you were just focused purely on that, and you weren't scrolling through something and eating at the same time, or listening to music at the same time? Just try to remember the last time that you did one task purely for the purpose of doing that one task and enjoying it as it is. And I challenge you, after you think back, if it's been a long time, to go out and do something. If you love music, sit down and pick your favorite album and listen to the whole thing without any distractions. Or go out to eat by yourself and sit down and don't get on your phone or listen to anything, and taste the food and use your senses to take all that in, and just experience one task to its fullness.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a consequence of this whole social media culture and this consumer culture, that, like you said, the music, that's a really good example. Throughout history, people only listened to music when they went to a concert or were at church. Those were the only times people listened to music. Maybe there was, someone, playing an instrument here and there, but nowadays music is so consuming. It's everywhere. You can't really go to a store without there being music. It's kind of eerie to go into a place, and if there's no music playing, it's kind of eerie to think about. That's really weird to think about that.
And I always think about, like, when I'm eating alone, because I spend a lot of time now being alone, because I think it's important for personal growth. But when I'm eating alone, I always wonder, like, people around the dining halls or wherever I'm eating, looking at me by myself, just eating my food and like looking around and observing others. They're probably like, man, that's a little weird what that guy's doing. And like, I just think that's funny, because we're seeing that shift I guess, in perception, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, it is. There are definitely some downsides to that, to being plugged in all the time. But like we said this before, there are good things to this too. These tools, it's such a powerful tool to be able to talk to people, to be able to see what other people are doing. But one of the main things I was thinking about is you see all these great things, people on vacation, people are hiking, people are doing this. You can go out and do that yourself. Maybe you get an idea. I always thought, if someone's hiking, ask them where they went hiking. Maybe you could go to that. You could go to that same spot. You could do the same thing. That's really important. Use social media as a tool. Say, this is a really beautiful sunset. Hey, where did you see that sunset? I could go there someday. I think it's really important to get into that mindset too.
Yeah, understand and experiment with how technology use affects you, and work on finding a healthy balance that suits you. I want to stress how subjective this idea is. Some people can consume way more than others and be healthy, but you kind of need to figure it out on your own. And when Evan and I were going over the podcast notes a little bit earlier, one thing that I said as kind of a joke was, it was like, "Shut up, Grandpa! Like, this is the future in a way." In regards to technology, and that is so true. I think that a lot of times there's a misinterpretation of, I guess, the message that we're trying to give forth, and that of older people who are like, "Oh, you need to go back to the old days. Oh, it's not like it used to be." And yeah, it's not like it used to be, because technology use is changing our future as we know it, and it can be a very, very good thing. And I think that, seeing from our point of view, that there needs to be that balance where you have time for yourself and you're not consuming all the time, but you also can use technology for what it's meant for those positive, healthy purposes.
Yeah, there are definitely those people out there who see any use of technology as a bad thing, they see it as technology taking over. And while there's maybe some truth to that, we understand that, like you said, this is the future. These tools, they're going to be with us for life. We're going to need to get used to them. We're going to be able to use them in ways that are productive. And if we don't do that, I think that's where we run into problems. The problems aren't with the technology. It's how we use them and how often we use them and how much we allow them to take over. Are we in control, or is the technology in control?
It's a tool just like everything else. It's allowing us to be able to see what the tool is and how we can use it, rather than trying to put this thing in place of the things we need. And what I mean by that is having input, like using technology to fill a hole that you have as an individual, rather than using it to connect to people that otherwise you wouldn't see.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it becomes unhealthy when you're using it to fill this void. And you can fill the void with social media, but not just by scrolling through it, but like I said, by going out and doing these things for yourself, by going on social media and saying, "That's really cool, I could do the same thing." I think that's how you fill the void. You don't fill it by scrolling on the screen for 3 hours a day. I think you fill the void with seeing a few things and then experiencing things for yourself.
And it's kind of evolving how this idea of community is perceived, I think. 30 years ago, when you thought of community, it was probably hanging out at the mall, the American shopping mall with all your friends. But now we're kind of moving into that online world where we can connect and reach and talk to anybody we want to in the world who has access to technology. And that's not a bad thing. That community online is just a method of going out into the world. Then you keep touching on this example. You have your social media as a way to establish a community, and you can see all these things that these people are doing, and then you can use that as a tool or a pathway out into experiencing those things for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Like first it was MySpace, and then Facebook, and then things like Snapchat and Instagram came out. And like you said, it's always evolving, and there's always going to be people out there who can turn technology in a way that's new and different, and people will latch on, and they'll be, very engaged in this new platform. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think people will always have the ability to use this technology for something new, something creative.
Yeah, and especially we're in a kind of a weird time right now, because there's that transition period, I think, between this new technology and like what once was, and I had a professor compare our era to that of the Industrial Revolution, but ours is kind of a technology revolution in a way. And I thought that was like a perfect way to describe it. And since we're in such the beginning stages of it, it's kind of scary to be living in, but at the same time, it's very cool. And like this is kind of a segue to talk about a bunch of different things like AI and all this other stuff. I know Evan and I have a lot of discussion about like what we think AI is going to do in the future, but there's just a lot of different things that are still unknown, and understanding that we don't have all the answers and there is a lot unknown is the best way to find the healthy balance.
Yeah, I bet if like you said the Industrial Revolution, that's perfect. I bet if you were a farmer before the Industrial Revolution or right on that in that changing period, and you looked over and you saw the neighbor farmer with a tractor, I bet you'd have a little you'd be a little concerned with the future. You'd say, where's my place in this? And it's the same thing now. You're gonna look around and see all this technology, but there's gonna be opportunities. There's gonna be new ways in which we use this technology, and as this technology advances, there's gonna be so much that we don't even understand now. In 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it's gonna be so amazing the leaps and bounds that they're gonna make, that we're gonna make. Everyone's able to contribute to this. It's not just, oh, they're coming out with a new iPhone, I'm going to buy it. These are things that you can do. Oh, I'm going to, start this website. I'm going to start this this technology company. Or, those are kind of big examples, but even, I'm going to start this group chat with a bunch of my friends. Even stuff as small as that can really make a big impact.
Yeah, that's a great place to kind of wrap all of our ideas together so we don't get too far away from the main point that we want to push with this episode. But I think you guys should use this episode and this week as a challenge to find time to go out and do things without technology and focus on the task at hand, whether it's eating or listening to music or even having a conversation. This plays into a lot of different things we highlight: listening to other people and being present to consume real experiences, and understand that technology is a tool and you can use it however you want to.
Yeah. That summed up everything really well. Having the ability to step back, that's huge. If there's anything that you can take away from this podcast particularly, it's step back and experience life. You don't need to be plugged in all the time.
Awesome, brother. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode. As always, if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram to get updates on the podcast and other news. This week's end quote is by Rumi, a 13th century Persian poet. If you haven't checked out some of his work, I definitely recommend it. He said, "It's your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you."